Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to a very special episode of Spirit Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Zepeda, and I appreciate you tuning in for this very special episode. For I have two very special and awesome guests that are very, very important figures, friends, people I consider mentors in my personal life. And I reached out to them to come up, bring us up together to have some conversations about navigating the spiritual while we're all in this beautiful physical world. But before I get into it, I want to give an opportunity to introduce themselves and what they're about, starting with Richard and then Tiger.
My name's Richard Lassiter. I live in Richmond, Virginia area. I'm a Wayshowers College certified spiritual consultant, and I've been doing this work for a little over 50 years. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Alvin and Tiger.
Yeah, my name is Tiger Coll. My I kind of grew up at doing this work. My parents were involved in this and helped start this program and other ones. I think my purpose in life is all about freeing people, and I help bring together their energy, their time, all their inner resources so that they can fulfill their life's purpose. And like Richard was bringing up, that's what this program is all about, and we'll go into some of that. But really, it's just to make things a way of life and have some fun. So that's pretty much what I'm all about. And I'm looking forward to being here.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And again, I appreciate you guys for joining. And to get into it, yeah. So one of the big things that I was thinking about, when I share on a weekly podcast episode with my listeners, I'm always looking at share with people, my experiences and my take and how I approach certain situations. And I think for me, the big thing about my podcast is education and informing people about the things that aren't really considered enough. So it's like talking about living in two worlds where we are here in this physical world and we're having these experiences and we all have generally a basic understanding of the how the material world works, like the gravity, the weather, days of the week and things like that. But not enough attention is paid to, I feel, when it comes to the spiritual, which is something that I see that's something that happens behind the scenes. And looking at it from the perspective of, okay, I'm having these experiences out here, but also simultaneously, I'm having experiences within myself. There's stuff going on as I'm relating with things that are happening. And so I just wanted to kind of get into of like understanding what it's important that how I think, how I feel is makes a huge difference into what happens out here in my environment. Meaning there's this beautiful play that can happen between my inner and the outer. And just wanted to open up to you guys anything that's come up for you.
Do you know anything about that, Tiger? With me, while you were talking, I kept seeing all the choices I have all day. And right now, I've been through a lot in my life. I was a teenager in the 60s when things were volatile at that time. And everybody was very concerned about a lot of things. And we survived it. And I think sometimes that experience allows me to look at what's going on today with a little more detachment. I don't have this, excuse me, feeling that the world is going to end or that things are quite as bad as some people seem to say they are. So what's going on in the world to me out there, as you said, that's my outer world. That's the ballpark, the playground I'm playing in. And there's a lot of stuff going on. But how I work with those from within myself, like all I have to do is get in the car and take a drive. And I have a lot of opportunities to either stay relaxed, cool, calm, and collected and accepting of other people, or I can get cranked up. And one thing I need to really keep in mind is I can choose to focus on anything I want to. I can focus on politics. I can focus on the economy. I can focus on anything, or I can focus on keeping myself calm and relaxed and not latching on to a concern or a fear. And the Tiger, involved in I was watching a thing you did the other day with Paul Kellogg, and there were three words you brought up that I'm finding really help me stay cool, calm, and collected, and more importantly, accepting and looking from a bigger point of view at what's going on in my environment. And if I recall, those words were self-respect, human dignity, and live and let live. And I have worked with that a little bit because I just was, those words were just shared with me within the last several weeks. And I'm kind of like, oh, so that may be a tool to help me, stay within my inner self, that I can use to allow the rest of the world to be themselves and go through the lessons they're going through without me getting caught up in it and making their lesson part of my lesson. I've just got another thing. I was talking to a man the other day. He's a friend and my son's soccer coach. And he wants more than anything in the world to be a soccer coach that trains elite players. And he has the background to do it. He was a professional in Europe. He was called up for PSG and Chelsea. He has his credentials in that area are like a PhD in science. But he believes that he needs to get a degree in psychology in order to do it well. So he's doing this training, doing psychology, and working with the FC Richmond program. And while we were talking, I just asked him, I said, do you really need that degree, or is that something you think you need? I said, I've seen you work with kids. I said, do you already have a degree in something? He said, yeah, I've got a degree in such and such. And I said, well, why do you need a degree? Maybe that's a distraction right now for you. And he just like, never thought of that. He hadn't given himself permission to look outside the way society says he should live his life, or one of the things that he needs. And I realized right there I better back off, because I'd opened something for him. If I kept talking, it probably would confuse things, because I could see something had lined up. But that's just an example of how I can get caught up in what I think I should do and make what's really important to me, this goal of his to be an elite soccer coach, which he's already on his way doing. I'm taking a lot of the energy I could put into that, and I'm putting it into something I may not really need, and stressing a little bit about it. So it's just being really clear on what is it in my heart. If I could do whatever I wanted, what is that really? And then making that work for me, putting most of my energy into that. And at worst, I'm going to learn some lessons that'll help me do it a lot better when I try it again.
I think for me, the thing I'm going to start off with is the word fulfillment. I think fulfillment is critical in life, especially navigating the two worlds in which I live. You know, one of the premise for the programs that we work with, and what a lot of the basis that you share on, Alvin, has to do of helping people to help themselves. You don't need a guru in order to have a full life and fulfillment. It's good to connect with people who have a deeper understanding about things, but the ones who are really good will empower you to go be as good or better than them. You know? And so fulfillment becomes essential, because that's a guiding principle, especially as I'm early in my career of growing personally or spiritually or whatever you want to call that. It's fulfillment is a great navigator tool to understand how well I'm doing. And another one is like, how free do I feel? Richard brings this up a lot. How free do I feel in this situation? How free do I feel working with the economics of things in my life? In other words, my budget, my money. How free do I feel in my relationships? Those are little hints, because if I'm not feeling relaxed and free, or I don't have a lot of fulfillment in what I'm doing, there's nothing bad about it. It just gives me, it's like a compass. It says, whoa, the needle's pointing over here. It's not pointing straight. It's like, oh, okay, well, if I turn myself this direction, all of a sudden the needle points straight, right? Otherwise, I'm trying to, and this is kind of what you're bringing up, Rich, is I'll try to fight with things think about an idea of things like this gentleman that he's talking about. Oh, I need to have this degree in order to be successful, right? And then all of a sudden from the story, like, well, wait a minute, I can get involved now and still be just as successful. Or if I need that, I can pick it up later, but I can get involved now. So it's not that what I'm doing is any times wrong, but it can be that the way I think about things is off. And that's what I mean by the compass, right? The compass is always going to point true north. And so that's that when I get a little bit quiet inside, I don't have all the machinations going on. All of a sudden, I become aware of where I'm pointing. And then all I have to do at that point is get in alignment with wherever that needle's pointing, wherever that compass is pointing. And that helps me reorient. Otherwise, and I can tell you, I've done this plenty in my life. I'll know what I feel is right, but what I think is right is in a different direction. And that's talking about two worlds right there in conflict rather than harmony. Boy, when your sense of what you feel inside and what you think are two different directions, boy, you're talking about the inner war and conflict. That's a big deal. At least it was for me, and it is for me. But the thing I want to just make sure we tap into, and I'd love to have the back and forth and what you pick up, Alvin, is just to kind of, you mentioned in our green room before we got started, you talked about fundamentals, foundations of things. And it's good to just recap that with people and for myself. I've been doing this work like Richard for a long time. And Alvin, you've been doing it for years now. But if I don't recap the basics, then I lose sight of things. I can get caught up in all the would-haves and could-haves and should-haves in life. And to me, the basics are just like to start off, because we have so much. We have a orientation lecture and all kinds of stuff that goes over all kinds of basic points. And, for those of you listening, you connect with Alvin on this. He's got all that sorted out for you and links and stuff there. But just to get started, right? Just to get started, we talk about the spiritual. And when we say spiritual, we're not necessarily talking about just religious things. It's inclusive of that, but we're just talking about the spirit of stuff, right? How do I feel inside? Who am I? Where do I come from? Where am I going? That's what I mean by the spiritual. Spiritual can be defined by what is non-physical, right? What is non-physical. You look it up in the dictionary, that's one of the definitions. So we like to say, you are energy. You're here to learn and grow. You have a unique life purpose. You have help, spiritual help, and you're free. Those 5 points help people get started in that inner world, or what would be considered the spiritual. And if I can make that a way of life, a little bit like what Richard and yourself is bringing up, Alvin, that's everything. So if any of you listening to this and listening to us were to just start making those 5 points in your daily life, your whole life would start shifting, right? It would be a tremendous, you would have an opportunity in life instead of a job of life, from my opinion. What do you think about that, Alvin?
Yeah, I think the one thing that stood out to me goes back to, Tiger, what you were sharing about fulfillment.
Right.
And I think it can be easy to be like fulfillment, what's fulfilled, when oftentimes there are a lot of these forces outer, but also within, that can kind of wedge between myself and that fulfillment. And what I've come to learn in doing the inner work for myself, is understanding, like, what are the ways that I'm getting in my own way. And for me, I know that requires looking at programming, my conditioning as far back growing up in my first 7 years here on this beautiful planet. And I think so there's that component. And I think also what has helped me to feel more fulfilled, when you're talking about the spiritual keys of, like, I am energy, I came here to learn and grow, it's like Those are like the components of like looking at life from that big picture perspective and even understanding and considering for a moment, there actually is a bigger picture to everything. And then and I'll share one more thing and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Another thing that would also help in terms of like going back to what I said about those things that can get in the way between me and feeling fulfilled, how I may get in my own way. One of the things I've come to understand, and I'm always learning, is that, and it goes back to the concept number one, I am energy. As a soul with a physical body, I am super sensitive. I pick up on thoughts and feelings, and kind of going back, Richard, to what you're talking about with psychology, his work, and it's just like the importance of discerning, are the thoughts and feelings I'm having, do I even take the time to question them? Are they even mine? Or am I doing things because I think I'm supposed to be doing it? You know, even just recently, something I thought about changing my relationship with goals. You know, I thought about running with some goals and actually checking in with each one and see how it and actually connecting. Like, does this actually have a resonance with me? Or am I doing it because I think I'm supposed to? Like, how do I feel about it as opposed to like how would other people see it or think about me or whatever? Like getting into this performative thing is really considering from within myself, right? What's me? And then questioning any thoughts that aren't constructive. And really, am I going to really buy into that? Especially I have thoughts about like, I'm not worthy. Those aren't really constructive. And yet, but going back to what you guys talk about, like where my focus goes, my energy. If I focus on it long enough, I start listening to these stories, and that's when I know I can get into my own little rabbit hole. So I don't know what you guys' thoughts on that.
Let me hop in before you go, Richard. I'd love Richard to just share on a topic here. I think it directly relates. You're talking about the fulfillment and the conditioning that can get in the way, right? I was sitting on I don't even, Richard brings this up. He may not even remember this, but we were sitting on a park bench one time, the two of us, and I was sharing with him that a friend of ours who had been involved in helping people personally and spiritually for a very long time. And he would go out and he would do lectures with people and workshops and all kinds of stuff. And he hit kind of a time in his life where he wasn't doing the stuff he was saying on this workshop. Like, in other words, the values and you are this and you can do all these great things and these great ideas, but he in his own life was having some challenges. So he said he stopped sharing with people because he felt like a hypocrite. He was telling people all about all this great stuff, but he stopped sharing with people because he did, like, I'm not doing it myself. And Richard, I don't know if you remember this, but you said basically it's like, yeah, there's a lot of good excuses to stop sharing with people. To me, what you were talking about, Richard, was there's a lot of reasons why I can just stop doing what I've come to do. And yes, indeed, I need to sharpen things up, but my programming will keep me from, my concepts will keep me from doing what I come to do. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do. I can see it. I'm not a visionary. It's a nice day. Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Well, I relate to that. I mean, we have a saying, but I think it's the truth. Anything I recognize, I have it. It's in me somewhere. And at this point in my life, I probably am more relaxed and understanding of how life works than I've ever been. And I have to fight the excuse that you're an old man, Richard. Nobody wants to listen to you. I keep hearing that. And I let it beat me down sometime. I could do a YouTube video every day. And I don't because of that little thing right there. And the consequence of it is I eat into my own fulfillment potential every day. Now, once that starts happening, then I want to escape from that feeling. I don't want to feel that. So I can make excuses to do things to actually drag myself down even further. Like, okay, I don't feel like doing this. I want to do something, but I can't do what I won't do. I choose not to do what I'm really good at and really makes me feel good. So I think I'll watch some Facebook for a little while. And then 2 or 3 hours have gone by and I'm late for bed. Now tomorrow's thrown off a little, all because of a concept I forget. that what you're listening to and what you're seeing right now, they are two different things. What you're listening to is a soul that has no age. And what you're seeing is the body I've been using for nearly 79 years to get around on this planet. And it's a level of self-acceptance that I've let get ahead of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to start looking at, to be real short, I get up in the morning now, and first thing I do is I'm in the bathroom usually, the things you do in the morning when you first get up. And I'll say, I'm really grateful that I have this and I have that and I have this. I take a look at the things that I have a home on world standards, and I'm not talking about US standards, on world standards. I'm a rich man. I haven't missed a meal. I have all these opportunities. I have 2 vehicles. I have healthy family, all of these great things. But if I'm not careful, I can ignore all of that and begin to focus on a very small picture instead of just being like this. And when I do that, it is not fulfilling, and I'll create an excuse for myself, no matter how flimsy, to cover up that I'm not willing to go beyond my concept.
Yeah. They talk about that as the fear of success, right? That reality, we don't really fear failure. We fear success, right? Because I'll have to, and I know I deal with it. I think everybody deals with it. It's just as I go through life and I learn these techniques and tools that we've been working with, and Alvin, you've been a part of, that starts diminishing, or the time I spend in that starts becoming less. And the time I work with what works for me, I'm investing more, right? That difference between spending my time or investing my time. And it becomes fun, right? Because that's part of what, I hear Richard talking about is if I'm in that right place in my thoughts, that space in my heart, then life is fun. And that brings us back to the fulfillment, right? That it's not what I do, it's how I do it. It's not what I say, but how I say it in life. And that's kind of it's a corny phrase, but it's true. It's that attitude of gratitude, helps shift things. And there's an old Asian saying, it's been around for thousands of years. It says, I once complained that I had no shoes, and then I met someone with no feet. It's like, okay, there's always somebody who's got it worse. And all of that to me, just talking about that 2 worlds for a minute again, Alvin, becomes a distraction. I realize that the more I come to a place where I'm quiet inside, I can just step away from the world for a minute. I realize that most of that is all a distraction. In the end, I come in alone and I go out alone, right? We can talk about that till the cows come home. Not that I'm alone. It's just that if I don't raise my own state of consciousness, no one's going to do that for me, right? So I have to have a degree of loyalty to myself. It doesn't mean that I'm not loyal to my family. It doesn't mean that I'm not loyal to my flag or to whatever the bigger picture is, but I need to have some loyalty to myself. And how I gauge that is, do I love and respect myself as much as I love and respect those who I have great honor for, or totally have a great admiration for, or a family member or a friend? At least for myself, I have a tendency where if I'm not aware, I will treat them higher than I will treat myself.
Mm.
Right. So, and that's part of what I hear, Richard talking about is, am I saying positive things for myself, not just saying positive things to people? And so is that the same? So those are those 2 worlds, the 2 worlds of what's material and the world that's not material. And my inner world is not material. It's the stuff I take with me when it's time for me to go home, right? When I pass on. And that's the continuity I have. And I guess the last thing I'll say on that is whatever I practice here, I'm going to end up being with out in the universe or God or the cosmos, whatever you want to call that, right? It's all this different words for the same thing. So if I'm not practicing heaven right now, right? And that's what Richard's talking about. He's practicing that right now by looking in the mirror. If if I'm not practicing that with my family, if I'm not practicing that with my body, if I'm not practicing that when we're talking here, if I'm not practicing that, what makes me think I'm going to find it when I check out, when I go home? Do I think it's going to magically appear? Well, no, like attracts like. I'm going to float to my state of awareness. So now's the time to practice. The whole thing I'll stop here. Richard, you talked about just before we got started about the game of life, just playing the game of life, right? But anyway, that's where I'll pause there. But that's the fulfillment of life.
Well, yeah, something that came up to me that I felt really wanted to share was when you're talking about consciousness and raising our consciousness. I think something that when it comes to the spiritual keys, laying the foundations is important to consider because this is how I know for me, how I operate, how I move, and how I do things is that when it comes to the life on earth, it's important to understand that we're in a school here. We all collectively came here to this planet, incarnate to a physical body. We chose our parents. Well, we don't have to go too much in detail about that, but there's so much that could be said there. But like, at least my understanding of how I relate those experiences and just I'm in here with this motive of I'm here to learn. I'm here to get something out of it. Not like from a selfishness perspective, but it's more so of just in order for me to get my needs met, I need to give of myself to people. Like, Richard, you were talking about the thoughts and stuff that can prevent, you from sharing. And I definitely relate too. I definitely have been, it's a lot of, that's where I'm kind of going into my challenges as a content creator. These excuses and thoughts that come up that will prevent me from sharing, which is something that I need in my own personal growth and evolution. I think is essential. And I think, part of what's important for me to consider is that I think for me, when it comes to the fear of success, there's this idea of perfection that I think is really misunderstood, in such a way that it's kind of like this antithesis of what life on planet Earth is meant to be. Success is not perfect. It's messy. It's all types of things. It is not like, oh, success is like Hollywood and the movies and what they kind of paint those pictures. I mean, growing up for sure for myself, it's definitely, influenced that and kind of made it perhaps this kind of picture that isn't quite grounded in reality and what's going on. And this is where I think for me, for myself, I have to be aware of I don't get into some kind of fantasy and actually get dialed into just the reality of what is and being connected in the present moment because yeah, like the fear of success and just like perfection, that right there can just be like how I get in my own way. And I don't give myself the grace to mess up, to make mistakes, and not like thinking that I have to get it all right. Oh, I messed up. Oh, because I know for me, something that has reinforced like this fear of doing something wrong. I'll be honest, when I was growing up, I had a father who was very like disciplinary, and I've gotten reprimanded a lot for doing things. I felt like I was just being my own self. Like I'd get in trouble when I was in school, not for like doing anything crazy per se, mostly because I was like very talkative. I was talking to people. I like to just talk to my friends and stuff, and I was disruptive. And whenever parent teacher conferences would come up, I get my butt beat because of something silly like that. And yet that impacted my relating, my sharing with people. But I understand that rather than judging that, it's like again what I said about this is a school. All this is an opportunity for me to learn. This is my own life curriculum, and everything that happens is there for me, not against me. So how does that fit into my purpose and kind of beginning that process? At least what's helped me healed a lot and helping me understand where I'm coming from for myself and and sharing with you guys. Anything you guys want to share on that?
Perfection. That I was raised in a church. Everyone nearly my age was. It's what you did on Sunday. You go to church, and I've thought perfection is something that's pretty well programmed into most people. at a very early age as something you can never attain. And it makes this impossible carrot out there all the time. But if I look at things more realistically, if I'm honest with myself, I have to say I am perfect. Now, I'm going to be more perfect in a minute, but I have to view perfection as energy, as a soul, going back to those foundations Tiger talked about. At this very moment, let me backtrack this a little. One of the things always interested me when I was a kid was in the Bible, Jesus is reported to have said, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand." And I'm going, doesn't that mean it's right here, right now? And if it's right here, right now, then the question I need to ask myself is, how am I keeping myself from it? And the idea that I don't deserve it or that I am imperfect as I am in this moment, that's one of the things that can keep me from it. And I don't mean perfection in the way of like, there's no more to do. There's no more growth. I mean, in the fact that at this moment, I'm really sharing the very best I know how to do. And at the end of this thing, I may look at this video and go, that was a dumb thing to say. But in the moment, it wasn't. In the moment, I was doing the very best I knew how to do with what I know at this time in my state of consciousness. And if I can accept that, then I begin to view perfection as a state of being. You know, Tiger shared with me, must have been over 5 years ago, something that I have been working on since then, and that's the ability to be the same with everyone. And what that it has boiled down to me at this point is getting out of the way of myself and showing the same love I show for my children or you or people I do love to everyone. And it doesn't mean running out on the street and giving them a big hug, but it's respecting the perfection that they are in the moment. And to do that, I have to really relax and accept the perfection that I am in my intellectual imperfection, but as an energy pattern, you just aren't going to get a better me right now. I'm as happy as I'm going to be right now. I have to build on that. And it builds moment by moment, and I have to give myself a break. I have to allow myself to make mistakes or to hit stepping stones. And I think our education system does a marvelous job of educating our creativity out of us because it made me afraid to walk on the wrong side of the hall, to raise my hand, to say what I felt without permission. And now I bring all that stuff into my adult life, and that's not me. I'm freer than that.
Yeah, I'm going to key off on that one as we start getting close to wrap up here. I think the thing for me to remember is, and Alvin, you hinted on that. It's right there in our technique workshop where we talk about you choose a team of spiritual helpers when you came here. You chose your situation. These are the kinds of things we talk about. And I can forget that how much power I have. I forget that the world isn't happening to me, that the world is happening for me. This situation, I have a couple things that are going on in my life that if I don't remember that that's for me, I'll think it's against me, right? My reaction, and that's part of what I get what you're saying there, Richard, is my reaction is I'm looking to have everything go right. I want everything to go right. Okay. But I can't control other people. They have free will. And I want them to have free will because I don't want anybody to tell me I can't have my free will. So unless I'm going to be a hypocrite, I'm going to say I'm going to have to come to this level of acceptance with the world and people. And by the way, that's part of graduating here on planet Earth. That if I don't accept the world as it is, I don't accept people as they are instead of what they should be or worst of the worst of what I should be, right? There goes back to that shoulds, right? You just should all over me. Point being is that once I have a level of acceptance that everyone has free will and there's not so much, I would say there's not so much right and wrong for me. There's not so much right and wrong for other people. It's that everything has a price. Everything has a consequence, so to speak, right? I can't even breathe for free. Nothing's for free. And that's a big fallacy, right? Something that, oh, I'm going to get free this, or some of, the company says, oh, I'm going to give you a free phone, right? Or I'm going to give you, let's all have free, the company will give me free health care, or the government will give me free health care, or whatever. Nothing is for free. We live in a universe that nothing is for free. There's a price for everything. Now, maybe it's the price I want to pay. Hey, there's a price for breathing, right? I have to be willing to expend the energy. I have to be willing to expend the energy it takes to blow out the air. So in order, I can take a fresh breath of air. And in order to do that means I have to eat because I have to nourish this body. I have to drink water. And in order to have that, I need to go out and work and earn my money so I can buy the bread and the food to feed. So you see, like, there's a price for everything. And not think about it, but there's a price. Now, it's a price I'm willing to pay because I want to breathe, right? It's all good. But coming back to the reality that as long as I remember there's no free lunch in life, I am willing. Me, not my brother, not my sister, not my grandparents, not the government. I am willing to do what it takes in order to be more free in my life. That's what, Richard, you're bringing up. I don't treat everybody the same. I'm the same with everyone. And the moment I come back to that responsibility to myself, right? Doesn't mean I don't work with other people. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to hear any YouTube stuff and Facebook stuff that I didn't say that. No, I have responsibility to myself. I also have responsibility for the things that I want to be a part of, right? But if the moment I have that responsibility for myself, I'm willing to take care of myself, bring my level of thoughts to the standard I want to work with, right? That's what, Richard, you're bringing up. It's like, wait a minute, that's not my standard. I don't want to work with that lower, bitchy, crappy vibration. I want to work with a higher vibe. Okay, I want to change the quality of my thoughts. I'm in charge of that. I have power over that. But the price I pay to do that, I'm speaking for myself, by the way, team. The price I pay for that is I have to let go of the old way of thinking. I have to let go of the idea that I'm going to miss something and start putting my focus into what it is I truly need and want in life. And that's what I mean by life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And my closing is that, Alvin, you brought up that point about having that strict father figure there. The moment, and Alvin's just sharing that as a story, right? Because you and I have talked about that a lot. You don't have a problem. It's just this, reality that you know about. The moment I realized that every single piece of that is helping me move forward. It's just a matter of me putting it in its right place so I can work with it, right? I don't use a hammer to try to cook my food. I use a spatula. But I don't use a spatula to hammer in nails. So everything has a place if I know where to put it. So that discipline has a place. It's important in life that I have discipline if I put it in the right place and not try to beat myself up. So life is happening to me. Everyone who's hearing this, life, if you just change the simple thought, I'm telling you, the simple thought of life is happening for me. All of the things that happened in my first 7 years, all of the financial challenges, all of the world, all of the politics, It's all happening for me. Now, the only thing left to do is how do I want to work with it so I'm more successful? How do I want to do it so that I can have more fulfillment? Right? I need to ignore that now. Oh, I need to embrace that now. That's what I mean. And to me, that's the fulfillment. I guess that's what I'll close on is if I recognize that I am a part of this world and I have power to move myself within it and either be happy or sad, that's my choice. That's my choice. Do I have to be sad that I didn't quite earn as much money? Does that make me sad? Do I get happy when I earn a bunch of money? Sure. When this relationship goes sideways, do I get sad or do I get happy? I'm in charge of my thoughts. So the world is happening to me. Maybe that relationship is moved out so I can have a new one. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe my kids are doing this so that I can move forward and do that. Is that my way of thinking? Or am I focused on the negative? Am I focused on the bad part? So I don't want to live in a fairy tale land, but at the same time, it's not what I do, it's how I do it. It's not what I say and how I say it. So that's me.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate Tiger. Yeah, and I think one thing I'll say on that, as you were sharing about, what was been shared about responsibility and power, I've just found myself thinking about that famous quote from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And really just like because of that reality of how much power we have as an individual. I remember Tiger you would say it's like, as an individual, anybody has the ability to change the borders of a country if they organize people enough to just like, I don't know, just I remember you mentioned something like to that effect of like really speaking to like that personal power and impact, not just, of course, the impact in the outer friends, families, colleagues, and stuff like that, but that all comes from just that power within, that inside out. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to have that kind of influence on other people if I didn't have and worked on that within myself, being responsible for myself and being a leader for myself. And that's why I appreciate I'm, connected with Richard, who's my journeyman. Those long ago when I was searching, my path of just like trying to discover more to life and really, doing more for myself, being my own inner leader because I have that power and I have that responsibility to myself to do that. And then when you mentioned about the program is like the college is here to help people help themselves, right? Teaching tools and techniques and all the things. It's like all that together so that as an individual, I'm equipped with the stuff so that I can claim the best life that was there for me the whole time and just like embrace it, you know, take it all, own it. And just everything, the good, the bad, the ugly type of thing. And so that's why I've been in this ride and I'm going to continue in this ride, doing the things, working with you guys. Oh, you two awesome people. And yeah, and so I definitely appreciate you guys for coming on this call, for taking this opportunity to just share with my listeners. And then for you, my friend, if you're listening to this, I hope you got something out of it. And like I said, if there's anything that inspired you, take a moment to sit with it. See it as an opportunity to journal or whatever way calls to you, and just or even just have a discussion about something that came up with a friend or family or something. Even from there can do a lot. Even just I feel like so much high energy right now just having this great discussions with my two closest friends. Before we wrap things up, Richard and Tiger, anything else you want to wrap up, or anything, I guess, concluding words before we wrap this up officially?
Yeah, I keep hearing without understanding that I really do have the power to live a
Mhm.
rather fearless life. I'm going to have that fear. I'm not going to feel the spiritual freedom that I came into this world with. And to me, I think that is the hunger of every soul is to regain a feeling of spiritual freedom within myself so I can radiate that out into my life. And I'm very grateful that, I ran into this program so many years ago because I must have needed a lot of work because look, I'm just here now and I see there's more places to go. So thank you for letting me share. And yeah, guys, if any of you are interested in do this work, get hold of Alvin or one of us. It's fun. There's no more fun than knowing really who I am and how to work with who I am in a way that changes the world. Thanks for letting me share.
I guess my closing is that just to remember the bigger picture of life, that you're a part of something larger. There's something larger that you are a part of that sometimes we don't see with the naked eye. I said that before, but you are, you have been, and you always will be. And people may call that a consciousness, a soul, intelligent light, a beingness, whatever it is, that's the real you. And you go on. Richard would say, well, how do you know that you go on? Well, it's kind of like saying, prove to me you've had a dream. You've had a dream. You know you had a dream. So the moment you tune into and are relaxed with yourself, you know that you go on. You know that there's a bigger picture. So that's the first thing, and probably my part of my key closing is to remember you are part of a bigger picture. You've come to do something very important and something specific. You're perfect for what you've come to do. You may not be perfect for what Bob comes to do or Sally comes to do, but you're perfect for what you come to do. And so the more you can organize yourself to unfold that and start living that life, it doesn't mean that you don't respect and work with other people. It doesn't mean that you work with the rules and regulations of society. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you start coming to the reality that you're here and you have a purpose and it's part of your fulfillment in life. And that's how you know you're getting close to it, because you start feeling more fulfilled. You start feeling happier in what you're doing. And usually that's just an adjustment, right? It's just a little adjustment, a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit left, a little bit right. And you would be amazed at what life can bring you. You will be amazed at how happy and how great your body can feel. So it's just like where if you are holding that compass and you notice the compass is pointing over here, but you're pointing over here, it's just a matter of you going, okay, well, as I walk, let me adjust as I start walking and get back in line with the compass. That's it. Right. And when I say your compass, I'm talking about your true feelings, that sense of what you've come to do in life. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it'll take you a little bit to get there. There's a few things that we can help you with. Alvin can show you that, probably links down below. But it's amazing if you just give yourself that. I'm telling you, come and join us in the world of fulfillment. I'm not saying I'm fulfilled every single minute, but boy, it's a lot more than not. It's a lot more than not.
Yeah.
If you're someone who seeks that, if you're sincere, that's the key word. Got to have sincerity. If you're sincere with that, then come and join us. You're one of our sisters and brothers. We're looking forward to meeting you. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, y'all. And so as you know, I was just said, like if you guys wish to connect with Richard or Tiger, I'll be sure to include their information, their contact info in the show notes, as well as additional resources. So if you want to begin to work more towards that fulfillment and inviting more in that life, to have like having more meaningful relationships with yourself and other people and those around, and really just like I said, just the best place to start, just check out the resources below in the show notes and whatever resonates with you, follow it. Like Tiger was saying, like whatever your compass you feel like is pointing you towards, go for it. Give it a shot. And so this has been another episode of Spirit Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Zepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.